We are back with some 1QB content. So again, if you're a 1QB player and you like this kind of content, make sure you like this video and make sure you subscribe. We'll keep putting out 1QB content. We're going to do a Dynasty rookie mock draft today, 1QB. Again, this is really going to be very similar to our other rookie mock drafts we do for Superflex leagues, but we're just going to move the quarterbacks down a little bit. So I'm going to go first, and I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. This is a pretty obvious choice up top, in my opinion. I do think there is a world where Malik Neighbors ends up in the same tier as Marvin Harrison Jr., depending on the draft capital, depending on how the combine goes. But right now, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the pretty clear number one prospect outside of quarterbacks in this class. So that being said, anybody who has the 101 in a 1QB league is probably going to be looking to take Marvin Harrison Jr. And if you're not, you're probably looking to trade back. So I'll take Marvin Harrison Jr. here at the 101.
Interesting landing spot, too, in this mock draft that we've got out of Sports Illustrated. He's going to the Bears, where the Bears trade up from their later draft pick up to the 103 with the New England Patriots. They get Caleb Williams at the 101, and then they get Marvin Harrison Jr. So pairing those two together, it's not the best maybe dream landing spot that you could think of for MHJ, but with Caleb Williams, it becomes
Caleb Williams,
yeah, it does.
So even though he'd be the 101 probably anyways, that further solidifies, in my opinion. I don't think it's a bad landing spot if he has Caleb Williams throwing the ball instead of Justin Fields. So.
Right, and Malik Neighbors in this mock is going to have Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. The Chargers take him at the 105 in this mock draft, and honestly, if this were a rankings video, this would be enough, I think, for us to put Malik Neighbors in the same tier as Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think you're probably right. And by the way, this is not our mock draft, the landing spots. This is one we found online. We'll put the link in the description.
Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated mock draft, so we're going based on this 3-round mock draft that we found. But yeah, I think you're right. I think if he were to go to Los Angeles with Justin Herbert, I think that'd be a pretty big deal for his. My goodness,
the hype would be real. There'd be a lot of people that try to get cute with their rankings too and rank Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr. just because of the guaranteed pairing with Justin Herbert for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but again, Malik Neighbors also very good prospect. He would be the wide receiver one in almost any other class. So he's really, really good here. I'm going to go Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze goes at the 109 in this mock draft, which I think is a very real possibility. I've been saying for a little bit now, I think he's going to get top 12 draft capital in the NFL drafts. I think NFL teams are really going to like his skill set and his profile. Going to the New York Jets in this mock draft. Not the best landing spot, but he's going to play with Aaron Rodgers for next year at least, and probably the year after. I bet Aaron Rodgers plays 2 more years unless he gets hurt. Aaron Rodgers throwing Rome Odunze the ball wouldn't be a bad thing. He would be playing alongside Garrett Wilson. However, we're not going to fade him because of that. Well, we didn't fade Jordan Addison because he was playing with Justin Jefferson. It's the same kind of situation here. So you're really thinking about the pass-catching weapons in New York. You've got Garrett Wilson, and then you've got exactly. So, Rome Odunze, he would
Lazard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, all of Aaron Rodgers' buddies. Yeah. Rome Odunze to the Jets, not the sexiest landing spot, but I do think the draft capital with the landing spot, I'm comfortable taking him at the 103 still.
Yeah, I've got to go Brock Bowers here at the 104. Going to the Denver Broncos in the 12th overall pick here in this mock draft. Let's ride. I mean, talk about a dream landing spot for Brock Bowers, an elite level tight end, being paired with a head coach in Sean Payton, who's got a history of elite producing tight ends in his offense. I mean, I'd be dreaming of Jimmy Graham all over again, but honestly, even better. And that's something I'd love to see. I mean, you've got no guarantee at the wide receiver position with Judy and Sutton long term. And I mean, you could see Brock Bowers immediately being the first option in that offense right off the bat. Not to mention, I mean, there's a chance that they don't draft a quarterback in this class and they just ride with Stidham for a year. If you've got a backup caliber quarterback starting for you every single week, your most comfortable target in that offense is going to be Brock Bowers. I think you'd be looking at a pretty highly productive rookie season for Bowers.
I'm going to follow the draft capital still, and I'm going to go Keon Coleman at the 105. Yeah. In this mock draft, he's the 4th wide receiver off the board going to the Colts. And I don't think this is a realistic landing spot for him because in this mock draft, it assumes that Michael Pittman would go elsewhere in free agency, so they would draft Keon Coleman to fill that role. I think Keon Coleman and Michael Pittman are 2 very different receivers, however. I don't think Keon Coleman would be near as good in the offense as Michael Pittman would. However, if he's getting top 15 draft capital in the NFL and Chris Ballard is drafting him in the top 15, that would make me think think that they see something in Keon Coleman to where they think they can develop him. Obviously, going to Indy, he'd be coached by Reggie Wayne, who's the wide receivers coach. That would make me feel better as well. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of Keon Coleman, draft capital is king. And if we're really in this hypothetical situation where Keon Coleman goes top 15 in the NFL draft, I will take him here. I will stick to my philosophy and say draft capital is king. And so I'll take Keon Coleman here.
Yeah, and we're getting to a point now where most of the guys left that are going in the first round are towards the tail end. So it's kind of pick your favorite guy, pick your favorite landing spot.
Nathan doesn't want to take Xavier Legette.
Yes, and I'm going with Brian Thomas at the Bills. I am absolutely 100% taking Brian Thomas going at the 29th overall pick to the Buffalo Bills, essentially replacing the absence of Gabe Davis, but he'll actually have some versatility as a wide receiver and serve more than just a deep threat in that offense. I think this is a perfect pairing. This is a great transition time for him to develop for a couple years as Stephon Diggs is probably phased out over the next 3 to 4 seasons, which, that's a long time, but like Stephon Diggs in 2 years is not going to be the Stephon Diggs that we've grown to know and love over the last couple of years. That's just the reality of a 31-year-old wide receiver. So I think Brian Thomas maybe it'll take a couple years for him to really be a dominant producing wide receiver, but I think he'll be able to do enough even in his rookie season that he's going to be a pretty valuable asset in future years.
So in this mock draft, we had 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. Caleb Williams at the 101, Drake May at the 102, Jaden Daniels at the 106, and Michael Penix at the 108. So if that is actually how it plays out in a 1 QB league here, I would take Jaden Daniels. I'm going to shoot for upside. I'm going to shoot for a guy who can break fantasy football if he turns out to be the dynamic rushing threat and passing threat that whoever drafting him here, which ironically enough would be the Giants, thinks that he could be. I would assume if the Giants draft Jaden Daniels, again, this is a dynasty league, but I would assume they'd sit him behind Daniel Jones the first year.
Yeah.
I'd still be willing to take him over every other quarterback here because, again, in a 1 QB league, I'm shooting for that upside. Caleb Williams has better draft capital. Drake May has better draft capital. But you're talking about top 10 draft capital. You're talking about a difference of 4 picks. I'm pretty comfortable taking Jaden Daniels if he goes at the 106 here. So.
Yeah, and I'll follow suit with you here, and I will go Caleb Williams to the Bears, 101, first overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. I think everyone's expecting that at this point. I don't really realistically see him falling. And, yeah, we take Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams in this draft purely because of upside. That said, Caleb Williams can still have just as much upside as Jaden Daniels because I do think he's a better passer and has shown more overall like elite level tools that he should be going back to back with Jaden Daniels in the same tier.
So I'll take Troy Franklin at the 109 here.
Okay.
Troy Franklin goes at the 203 in this draft, and he goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, there is a chance that Marquise Brown is not on the Cardinals next year, so I'm assuming if they're drafting a receiver in the early second, in this scenario, Marquise Brown would not be on the team anymore. And that being said, Troy Franklin is a guy who a lot of professional NFL scouts think could be a top 3 wide receiver in this class. There are people, I would top 4, I misspoke, top 4 wide receiver in this class behind the obvious 3 up top. It's going to be a little shaky after those 3, but Troy Franklin has a very good skill set to translate to the NFL, in my opinion. He has a ton of upside, and if he's getting early second round draft capital, to me, that's not a huge difference between him and the 2 guys we skipped over at the end of the first here. So him being with Kyler Murray, playing with a quarterback that I know that can support him from a high upside fantasy perspective, I'm pretty comfortable taking Troy Franklin, so I'll take him at the 109.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that landing spot. And then I am going to go with Adonai Mitchell to the Chiefs. At this point, there is such a need at the wide receiver position in Kansas City that whatever wide receiver gets that landing spot in 2024, assuming they draft another wide receiver, is automatically going to be pushed up draft boards. Whether it's merited or not, logical or illogical, that's just the reality of dynasty market value with these Chiefs wide receivers. And if Adonai Mitchell goes at the end of the first round to the Kansas City Chiefs, he will be higher in value than a lot of these wide receivers when it's all said and done.
I'll take Drake May at the 111. Drake May in this mock draft goes at the 102. He goes to the Washington Commanders, and I would assume the Washington Commanders are going to be hiring somebody that's a little bit more, adept at running an offense in the NFL. So considering that and considering the draft capital that Drake May gets, I think the end of the first would be pretty safe spot for him in 1 QB leagues. I think he'll go around this range. So I'll take Drake May here with some pretty solid, skill position options still on the board.
Yeah. There's a lot that's yet to be seen with pretty much everything in Carolina. But what I do know is that there is absolutely no wide receivers in the Carolina Panthers offense outside of Adam freaking Thielen, who's going to be 34 next year, playing with Bryce Young, who will be going into his second year, and just he maybe he won't be a good NFL QB long term. That's fine. That's absolutely possible. He cannot be worse than he was his rookie season. And with Xavier Worthy going in there, I think he automatically establishes himself as the best receiving threat in that offense, hands down, without a question. I think he's going to get a lot of usage right off the bat.
All right, I'll take Xavier Legette here at the 201. I couldn't take him in the first, but in the early second, look, and yeah, I am violating my own rule there a little bit. He got 117 draft capital going to the Jaguars. I would be curious because I think in this scenario, obviously Calvin Ridley would be gone, so I think it would be him and Christian Kirk would be the primary two wide receivers there, assuming Parker Washington doesn't take a huge step up going into next year. So I would be a little bit interested in this landing spot. Was still not super high personally on Xavier Legette and did break my own rule a little bit there, but I cannot do it for some reason. I do not know why, but I'll take him at the 201, and I think he could go in the first in one QB leagues. So
yeah, give me Tez Walker going in the second round, middle of the second round to the New York Giants. If you are pairing Tez Walker, a wide receiver out of North Carolina who has been relatively productive and has shown some very promising tools, and you pair him with Jaden Daniels for the long term in New York, I am all over that pairing. I'm a huge fan of that. The best wide receiver in New York right now is Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'm sorry, Tez Walker is better than Wan'Dale Robinson, in my opinion, as a prospect. There's a lot that's yet to be seen. He has to do a lot at the combine, or he has to do enough at the combine for him to earn this landing spot, but I think it's absolutely possible, and I think this would push him up draft boards significantly if we really did see this.
Okay, so we're to the point now where there are some. I think the earliest running back that got selected in this mock draft, and this is a real conversation that needs to be had. There are 3 or 4 of them in the third round. Third round draft capital is not fantastic for running backs, but you're talking about like an early second round wide receiver here, or a mid or to late third round running back. Because when you're going to be looking at Blake Corum going to the Cardinals at the 322, people are going to salivate over that landing spot.
Yeah,
people will salivate over Braylon Allen to the Packers. People will. See, Trey Benson into the Giants isn't that attractive to me because
that's got to be assuming they don't re-sign Saquon Barkley.
If they lose Saquon, I would probably take Trey Benson here actually. So I'll take Trey Benson in the assumption that he goes to the Giants without Saquon Barkley at the 203. I think even in one QB leagues, the earliest that you're going to see running backs go is probably the end of the first this year. It's all going to be dependent on the combine and if we have anybody sneak up into the second round from a NFL draft capital standpoint. But this is tough. I prefer the value insulation of the receivers, but I do think these running backs will start going off the board, so I'll take Trey Benson here.
Yeah, give me I'll take Blake Corum to the Cardinals at the 322. He is talk about boosting his draft stock because of the college football playoff performance that he had in both games against Bama and Washington. Yeah, he's a little bit of an older prospect, but he willingly stayed at Michigan an extra year to run it back and get that national championship. And hey, it worked out. And I think he's a guy that's a great team player that a lot of teams, when they meet with him and really see what he can do at the combine, are going to fall in love with. I hope that he gets day 2 draft capital. If he doesn't, I wouldn't be shocked per se, but I'm really hopeful that he does. And if he goes in the third round, he's absolutely going to be going in this range in your rookie mock drafts.
I'm going to take Jalen Polk here at the 205. I was thinking about taking him at the 203 because he got 213 draft capital in the NFL draft going to the New Orleans Saints. He would be Chris Olave's number 2 there, and I think that would be a really good fit for him, honestly. I think he's a very underrated prospect right now. I think he's somebody that could absolutely go this high and has a very high ceiling in the NFL. Again, I think the landing spot's pretty good. I would like to see somebody better at throwing the football than Derek Carr. But
that would be nice.
But at the same time, you have to respect the draft capital, and the prospect, in my opinion, is a little bit underrated. So I like Jalen Polk. I'll take him at the 205.
Yeah, another guy that I think is going to fly under the radar continually is Jatavian Sanders going to the Cincinnati Bengals in the middle of the second round here. This is a perfect landing spot, in my opinion, a very pass-happy offense with Joe Burrow. Yeah, there haven't been any hyper-productive tight ends since Burrow has been there, but there's also been Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. Well, guess what? Joe Mixon, we don't know if he's going to be in Cincinnati after this season, and we don't know where T. Higgins is going to land. We assume that he's probably going to be elsewhere, and they don't have a tight end. I think they need a tight end, and I think they could really benefit from that. And Jatavian Sanders, man, he's a guy that I think could absolutely eat in that offense just from volume and availability alone.
Braylon Allen goes at the end of the third to the Green Bay Packers. My assumption here would be that they hang on to Aaron Jones and maybe they let go of A.J. Dillon like they should. A.J. Dillon really does not help that team, and Braylon Allen could take the place of A.J. Dillon. In my opinion, Braylon Allen is a better A.J. Dillon. That may be, a fairly good comp for him, actually. So I like the landing spot. I think he would get a fair amount of work in this offense, and I think, getting day 2 draft capital is enough for me to be comfortable taking him here at the 207 in a 1 QB draft. So Braylon Allen, a guy that I think honestly is my running back 1 in this class. He doesn't go as running back 1 here, so he comes off the 3rd running back on the board, in the rookie draft. But I'll still take him here at the end of the second.
I'm going to keep investing in these guys that are landing in a Panthers offense that is just completely anemic, but I'm just going to hope that I strike gold with one of these guys, and I will go with Cade Stover, who goes at the very beginning of the 3rd round to the Carolina Panthers. And you saw Hayden Hurst in some games, who he is what he is in the NFL. Like, he's nothing special as a tight end, but he had some pretty productive weeks, some pretty productive games, and was a pretty nice security blanket overall for Bryce Young as a passer and as a rookie. So I think Cade Stover has demonstrated some of those nice tight end tools that he could really show in the NFL, bring to the Carolina Panthers offense. And I don't really care what head coach they end up with. A tight end with an inexperienced quarterback that needs to grow in a lot of ways is going to be a really nice pairing.
I'll take Ladd McConkey at the 209. He goes in the 2nd round to the Cleveland Browns outside of Amari Cooper.
3rd round, I think.
3rd round, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see. 324, you're right. 3rd round to the Cleveland Browns. They have Amari Cooper, they have David Njoku, but I think there is room for another wide receiver to be productive in that offense, assuming that Deshaun Watson learns how to throw a football again. So with that, I'll take Ladd McConkey here. I think he's a fairly under-the-radar prospect, but I think he's somebody who could be fairly good in the NFL, and 3rd round draft capital for wide receivers is not the best. But
talk about trying to continually trying to strike gold. That's what the Browns are doing in the 3rd round right now. David Bell, Cedric Tillman, they're both pretty and then Ladd McConkey, let's just hope he hits this time. I'm going to go with Malachi Corley to the Eagles. He's pretty much just the last 2nd rounder that's gone in this mock draft that we haven't picked up yet. There's a lot of concerns just availability-wise, volume-wise. I would have taken him higher if it weren't for the landing spot.
Yeah.
Like, you've
He's
got
the 4th option there.
Yeah. So really, what upside is that going to offer? I don't know, especially with the rushing upside of Jalen Hurts. But at that point, I just have to trust the draft capital. I've got to take the 2nd round prospect at a discount here.
Well, I'll take the last remaining 1st rounder here and take Michael Penix.
That's a good
11.
pick. I kept wanting to take him, and I didn't know when to.
I know, and I think in a 1 QB league, I don't think people are going to be inclined to take him over some of these wide receivers and running backs to get 2nd and 3rd round draft capital. So Michael Penix, great prospect, gets really good draft capital here. Goes to the 108 to the Atlanta Falcons. I don't feel like he offers a ton more upside than either of the 3 guys that went, earlier in this mock draft. So I bet he would fall to the mid-late 2nd if this were how it played out. So I like him here. I think he's a really good value for a team that needs a quarterback here or a backup quarterback here, because he would definitely start in Atlanta from day 1. But Michael Penix, we're big fans. We're going to continue to be big fans. I think he's an NFL quarterback.
Let me take Jalen McMillan here going to the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, it's an oversaturated offense full of hyper-productive assets in fantasy and dynasty right now. But with the questions surrounding Brandon Ayuk and what the Niners are going to do with him during or after this season, Deebo Samuel isn't getting any younger, and his contract is coming closer to an end. True. George Kittle also not getting any younger. I think there's going to be some room for development here in the Niners offense where Jalen McMillan could show out and maybe even be productive as well.
Not to mention Ayuk might not even be on the team.
Right, they may trade him because they picked up his 5th-year option, I think, at the beginning of 2023. Yeah. But picking up doesn't mean that he's a lock to being with the Niners for 2024. So there's a chance he does get traded.
Yep. All right, 1 QB family. Here is your full 2-round mock draft. Again, the mock draft that we were looking at for the NFL landing spots in NFL Draft Capital is in the description, so take a look if you'd like to. We did not come up with these landing spots, so you're not going to say, why would the Eagles draft Malachi Corley? Well, I don't know. I didn't do the mock draft, but again,
this is all hypothetical.
It's all hypothetical. It's all going to be changing a lot. But again, if you play 1 QB and you want us to keep doing more 1 QB content, you can do 2 things. Like and subscribe. those two things will tell us to keep doing. Our first 1QB video did fairly well, so we did another one.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So again, we appreciate you guys watching. Hey, if you want a team blueprint for your Dynasty team, we break down a lot of 1QB teams in our team blueprints.
Yeah.
And our team blueprints, they are multi-year in-depth plans for your Dynasty team. They're basically outlines of what you should be doing to build your Dynasty team and take it to the next level. You can get one of those by going to flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain, choose a mother flocker tier, and then you get a blueprint. It's, again, a very in-depth plan, and you also get access to us into our DMs. We chat with you one-on-one. We help you build the team. We help you make trades. So if you want that, like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain and choose a mother flocker tier. Appreciate you guys watching. See you later.